everyone, welcome to Rainbow Soulstrology. I'm Bright Hawk, and together with Hollis Taylor, we bring you weekly astrology that's accessible, inclusive, and totally down to earth. Hollis is a seasoned astrologer and psychic medium. I'm a musician, artist, and storyteller who loves making the cosmos relatable. We're both passionate teachers who love answering your questions and helping you navigate life through the stars. Each week we start with a guided meditation to tune in to the planetary energies. Then we dive into the week's cosmic forecast, offer horoscopes for every sign, and always make time for your live questions. Whether you're brand new to astrology or you've been following the stars for years, we create a welcoming space where everyone belongs. Our different perspectives and styles come together to give you a well-rounded cosmic experience. Welcome to Rainbow Soulstrology. Let's get centered, tune in, and explore what the universe has in store for us this week.
Hey, welcome everyone. Welcome to Rainbow Soul. We're so glad you're tuning in this week. And man, we are looking forward to going through this week's transits. And we hope that you've navigated last week in a good way. We hope you've navigated all that Aquarian energy and that Neptune in Aries. What vision is for you now? Like what visions have been coming to you? I know ever since Neptune's moved into Aries, I've had lots of visions. Maybe which could be a good, especially in regards to my day-to-day life and my health. So I'm kind of grateful to have those visions available. Maybe you do too. Today we are going to do a little meditation, like usual, on this week's theme. So I want to encourage you to take a minute to unplug for a minute and check out Bright Hawk's music. Just take this minute to relax. Now, as you settle down and allow yourself to get lost in the music, imagine yourself walking on a path, a dirt path. There's a little bit of snow on the edges. And there's a couple little crocus flowers starting to peek through the snow. And you're looking down at your feet and just slightly ahead. You're very focused in on your feet. And you're walking your path, moving forward. Flowers occasionally come up, and there's slight curves in the path, but nothing too harsh. Nothing you can't handle. And all the snow and ice is over on the edges, so there's nothing to worry. It is a clear path. And as you're walking along this beautiful path, you start to feel yourself just slow down a little bit because there seems to be a rock or something. It's getting more rocky. Some more earth is coming out. And in this moment, it starts to look like a bit of a switchback. Where it switches back, curves around pretty sharply, back to the way you came. And as you start to go around the switchback, you get going forward, going up the hill. You start to recognize that now the rocks are pulling back and the path is clear and straight again. And in that moment, you realize that while your path was changed for just a moment, it was maneuvered in a different direction. Now you can see further along the path. You can see way out in front of you, and it seems to go on for as far as you can see. And you suddenly know that this is Uranus going direct. That Uranus had you focused in on the smallest details of your walk while it was retrograde. But now that it has switched back to going direct, you can see the path forward. You know where you're going, and the path is clear. You can even see up ahead that the snow has melted. The flowers are more heavily filled in, and there's not a single obstacle in your way. Uranus is direct. I welcome you to come back into yourself. Back into this moment. Back into your body, and wiggle your toes and your fingers. And come back to the here and now. It's beautiful, Bright Hawk. Thank you. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little walk with Uranus. And, you know, Uranus is about a lot of different things. And it does tend to rule surprises and sudden events, which is kind of why the switchback hadn't happened suddenly. But at the same time, it also rules your day-to-day like your life path, literally. And I mean, unless you were born with sorry, with Uranus retrograde, um, then uh, then when it goes direct like that, when it's retrograde, you might have a harder time seeing your path. Like you might be more focused on the minute details. And then when it goes direct, you'll be more likely to be like, oh, now I kind of see where I'm going, right? And then you'll have a better idea of which and Uranus is retrograde for a big part of the year. It's not a short transit. It's not like 6 weeks or something. Mercury is retrograde for like 6 weeks. Mars is similar, Venus. But Uranus, it's retrograde for a long time, for months. I think it's been retrograde since fall. Right? Right. Okay. I don't remember how long it's been retrograde.
Yeah, it's very interesting what you just said because I happen to have Uranus retrograde in the 12th house. So, in conjunct Pluto retrograde, I'm pretty sure. Did you freeze?
No. Did I?
On my computer, you did for a minute.
So what I was going to say is that Uranus goes retrograde every year, and it's usually retrograde for about 5 months, which is why it feels. I usually say, oh, it must be like 6 months or so, but it usually goes retrograde somewhere in the late summer, early fall, and then it goes direct in like late winter, early spring, and that's where we're at now, right? Okay, so this is mid February or early February, and Uranus is going forward. And to be frank with you, I always feel like it feels better when it goes forward. So I don't know if you've ever paid attention to it, Bright Hawk, but we have talked about your Uranus retrograde before in the 12th house, that sometimes, especially maybe because it's in the 12th house, maybe it's extra. But you have a hard time like knowing exactly where we're headed. And we've just learned to trust my instincts since my Uranus is on my ascendant and exalted. Um, although sometimes mine is very innocent at 1 degree.
It's Hollis is a very good scout, like incredibly great trip planner, knows the map, knows the destinations, and I am a very happy camper to do whatever is indicated, and it works out really well because I'll admit I second that department. You're very good at
And for years I would be like, Bright Hawk, come on, you have to give some input here. I can't just do all of this. I feel like I'm just leading you on by a leash or something. And she's just like, no, no, no. If I don't want to do something, I'll tell you. And I'm like, okay, because it feels like to me, I thought being the Virgo that I am, was I over controlling or overbearing? I don't want to do that. And she's just like, no, like otherwise I'll just kind of fire in some direction and maybe I'll land. And I'm just like, "Oh, yeah, I don't wanna do that." And then she's like, "Right, so just I like what you're doing." And I'm like, "Oh." So we've learned that that's because her Uranus is retrograde and in the 12th house. When it's in the 12th house, you tend not to recognize those planets. Like, I have Mercury in the 12th house, so sometimes I will say stuff that I'm like, that's not really what I meant to say, or the moon, I won't know exactly how I feel about something, so I'll have to like go sit and be quiet for a minute to be able to figure out how I feel. Sometimes I have to talk about it. and then maybe sometimes have it reflected back to me. So I appreciate people that reflect back to me, or AI. So it depends. And for a long time, I did not recognize my own intuition most of my life. My Uranus is also in the 12th house at 1 degree, but it's still my ascendant. And I used to think that, like, I didn't know what I was doing, but it turns out I do most of the time have some good idea of which direction to go and where to go. And this has trusting myself has been a big gift of astrology. So when you look at Uranus, consider how it might speak to you and what we just described. Now, does it mean that Bright Hawk's bad at knowing where she? No, she knows what she doesn't want to do. And the good news is she'll usually tell me. She'll be like, "Nah, I don't want to do that." And I'll be like, "Oh, okay." And usually we agree on those things, so it's pretty easy. It makes it easy on us. But most of the time, knowing where Uranus plays out for you, what sign it's in, is it retrograde? Is it in any aspects? Is it in a conversation with any other planets? Because every time Uranus goes forward or direct, you're probably going to know. And there's a whole bunch of people out there with Uranus in Aquarius. Um, all the millennials have Uranus in Aquarius, and all I keep thinking is, oh boy, especially last week with all of that Aquarian energy and Pluto in Aquarius. So Pluto will be speaking to Uranus. And that could mean that suddenly you're dealing with death or change or transformation, power and control and the dynamics of that. So Uranus is a very special planet, and it's very sudden. And I can sometimes be a very sudden person, and very quick, lightning bolt. It can sometimes be surprises. The good news is that in a transit like this week, it won't show up on the day of. But what it means for us is that you will mostly your life will probably start to loosen up, and you'll start knowing what direction you're going in and when. Things will start to work out if you've been stuck in a pattern. For us, I hope that means getting a house and knowing where we're going and where we're landing. So, Uranus turns direct on February 3rd. Now, the other thing is that Saturn enters Aries on February 13th. So, that's just 10 days later. So, and that will be at 0 degrees Aries. And when Saturn does that, it will be with Neptune. And Saturn, you will sometimes feel immediatamente. You will feel it when it goes backwards, when it goes forward, or when it enters or leaves a sign. So if you have anything in Pisces, Saturn will either reward you, or sometimes it will kind of say, no, we're, and it will kind of deliver its karmic lesson. And then February 17th, the solar eclipse in Aquarius. I do think that all of these happenings in February, and then Mercury goes retrograde in late February on the 26th, taking us into March. And I feel that all of the happenings this February are intense and speak to what we're seeing on the world stage, especially as Uranus starts to head out of Taurus. Uranus is currently in Taurus. It's at late degree Taurus. You can see that it turns direct at 27 degrees, so it just has a couple of degrees left. There's only 30 degrees in each sign, so it just has 3 more degrees before it heads out. I'm pretty sure it's April 25th. Bright Hawk put here for us that Uranus enters Gemini. And that's, this transit between February 3rd and April 25th is when Uranus is going to finish its job. in whatever it had to do around you and whatever Taurus rules, whatever house this is in your chart, it's going to finish speaking to you in that manner. So it's going to finish its lessons. It's going to finish its surprises. It's going to finish anything else that, and it's probably warned you at this point. You probably, maybe you thought it wouldn't come back, but you've probably have at least foreseen it coming to some degree or been worried that it's going to happen. Okay. And Uranus between February 3rd and April 25th is going to finish its job in Taurus. Now, Taurus has a lot to do with financial investments, has to do with money, it has to do with luxury. It's definitely like I said, it's a surprise, surprise, surprise all the time. And it don't, you could easily be surprised in a good way, or good or bad doesn't, you can't always know. Sometimes it depends on if there's anything in Taurus or Scorpio for you at those degrees. It could have something to do with something else. Um, it all depends. So that's really the big event this week is, and you probably won't feel it right away, right? Like, so you probably won't feel it, late February. You'll be like, oh, okay, I'm really seeing where I'm going now. And then when you get into March, you'll feel any better. So let's move on to Monday's slide, which of course, shows us with all that Aquarian energy. We have all those planets in Aquarius. There are 6 planets in Aquarius: Pluto, Mars, and the Sun. Sorry, 5, plus Venus and Mercury. And then we still have the North Node in Pisces. And with Neptune in Aries, Saturn is finishing its transit in Pisces, which I think is also an important thing to talk about today. So I think what's most important, though, is to understand that all of that Aquarius energy is still speaking to the protests, to we the people. All of that energy in Aquarius is making people want to come together, which is really what we need in our country right now. In the United States, that's what we need. So I think that's good news. Brighthawk, do you have something to add about the Aquarius energy or anything?
Well, I always find it fascinating when we have such a concentration in one sign and that there's so much emphasis on the Aquarian energy. Like if you were wondering when did the age of Aquarius begin, oh my goodness, it's underway now. And so one of the things that I think is fascinating is that as we see Mercury, actually the front runner in Aquarius right there at 22 degrees, is exalted in Aquarius. And of course, Mercury rules communication and all things communication. We know that it's going to go retrograde next month. And at the end of the week, it will change signs into Pisces. So right now, Mercury is very strong. It's still pretty closely conjunct, but it's a separating conjunction, I believe, of Venus, Mercury and Venus very much together. We still have Mars very close to the sun, 5 degrees. It's enough to definitely call it a conjunction. And 5 degrees between Mars and Pluto. So a lot of energy in Aquarius. The other thing you're going to see a lot this week is these green lines that we talk about called inconjuncts. It's different than an opposition. Oppositions are very difficult to resolve. It's this or that, and you have to work out a compromise with an opposition. With an inconjunct or a quincunx, it's 150 degrees instead of 180 degrees, which is the opposition, of course. And the inconjuncts, those we call destiny lines or lines of fate. And when you have two of them that's sextile, that's when we have what's called a yod or finger of God. And we have one of those this week with the moon. So you're going to see those green lines coming and going throughout this week, which means this week has not only a lot of intensity, but a lot of fated energy, that we're definitely all in this together. And because the nodes are involved, there's like a karma, I guess I want to say. It's for whatever reason, I don't use that word lightly, that's in play because of the south node. So the south node is sort of pointing most directly at Mars, but it's sort of lighting up the whole stellium. And so what is it from our past that's still speaking? Because we have Uranus now in that last degrees of Uranus, which it's done now. This is its third and final pass out of Taurus. So there's a repeating theme here that's come back to hopefully resolve. And what is it that it's trying to tell you about your life? Something's completing, something's concluding, and there's probably a message in that. So yeah, that's what I think about the Aquarian energy. And then the other thing I would say about Monday is we have a void of course moon that begins at 2 p.m. on Monday, and it goes all the way till 3:30 in the morning. So if you're new to listening, the void, of course, is the name of the moon when it changes signs. And it changes signs about every 2.5 days, right? Of course, the moon takes a month to go around, right? So everybody 2.5 days to go around the whole circle. And sometimes the void, of course, is very small and barely noticeable. And sometimes it's very significant. And so I try to always point it out when it's significant. If it's just a few hours and it's barely anything you're going to notice, I don't put it in. But if it's like this, where it's going to be most of Monday afternoon, evening, and nighttime, and if you work a night shift, it's good to know the voids are happening on Monday night. And when the void happens, it means the moon is at its weakest, that there's it has its least amount of energy. It's in this void place before it's fully stepped into the new sign and fully embodied in the new sign. And so we've been asking folks, well, what do you notice about a void of course moon? Do you feel like, we know for a fact that during the void, there's less dramatic energy, there's less emotional energy, which you really can work to your advantage. So we've also asked folks, like, what's your experience of it? And a lot of people have said, you know what? I actually can focus better. Now, sometimes Hollis has noticed there'll be a void of course moon and they cannot hold a thought in their head, like, or it's a wet blanket. Sometimes it's the opposite of that. Sometimes it's like, wow, it's like all the buzz went away and now I can think really clearly and I just got a bunch of things done really easily, just like that. So what is it for you? It'll really depend on what your sun, moon, and rising is. And of course, we offer instruction about how to find your sun, moon, and rising. There's a job aid about that on our website. And it's really helpful if you bring that information, bring your chart. And Monday evenings, except this week, it's going to be on Tuesday evening. We love to have a conversation with you about your chart, what's happening this week, and answer any questions you might have. Okay, so that's how we start the week.
I just wanted to add that, interestingly, Uranus, first of all, is in a square to, it's making a T square on Monday, and it is the ruler of Aquarius. Uranus being the ruler of Aquarius can sometimes sort of push on revolutionary energy. If you feel like you're living through a revolution, you are not hallucinating. You are. And with all that revolutionary energy, of course, we're watching protests. Maybe you're part of those protests. Maybe you are protesting personally. Um, I'm sure mostly people that are watching this are either protesting or wishing they could help protest. um, and so the thing, or in support of protesters somehow. And there's lots of different ways to support them. And so I would just say that with this Uranus square, I'm glad that the void, of course, starts at 2 p.m. Because this chart is at 1 p.m. So Monday afternoon, just go gentle in the hour or so. But I think mostly it will be okay. There could be some talking, there could be some negotiations with protesters, there could be some activists taking stage, especially with this Neptune and Aries calls to spiritual warriors. And now it would at this point be there for a couple of weeks. And so then it's starting to speak to those spiritual warriors, and they're starting to see what they're supposed to do. Some of them could speak up depending on their personal placements. And so I do think that Uranus does speak to that revolutionary. It could be a surprise. You might be surprised at what comes out, at what is announced. You might be surprised at new energy, forward thinking, or things that just kind of make you go, oh, okay. I mean, not necessarily good or bad, or maybe it could even be some things that we'd all be happy about. Okay. So, or most of us anyway. Um, so, just keep in mind that the thing that I always remember about being a Uranian personally, I'm personally a Uranian. Also, Uranus tends to speak to queerness. Um, so I want to add that, okay, is that Uranus tends to speak to LGBTQ people because LGBTQ people are progressive. So that's why Uranus speaks to us. There is also a time, um, I think it was in the 1800s and 19 or so, whatever, that when doctors would do your medical chart. If you were gay, often they would find Uranus in a strong placement, and they would call you a Uranian. And that was their way of saying that you were gay before we had a word like homosexual. Okay. So they would call you a Uranian because they usually based it on your chart. Now we don't really do that anymore because we don't use astrology for medicine. Although I think we're missing out. I think we should be using it for wellness at the very least. Um, and so and I do wellness readings, and I can help you with your wellness according to your astrology chart. But I would say that Uranus in itself does speak to queerness. But you know what? Right now, in this protest, in this time, queers are so wrapped up in the story. The LGBTQ community, especially transgender people, are completely wrapped up because they've been used as a tool to bring in fascism, as a tool of sort of of distraction. Look, we're managing these queers that are getting on your nerves and asking you to change your pronouns while we steal your money over here, right? So that's they've been doing that for a while now. And until people decide to say, no, I think we can all be treated equally. It doesn't matter to me about changing my pronouns. Stupidest thing I've ever heard. Just knock it off. Stop picking on those people. Until that happens, which it will eventually happen. And it will probably happen while Uranus is in Gemini. Um, of course, we'll have to start off fighting for our rights, but it will happen. Like it feels like we're going backwards right now, but that's because Uranus is retrograde and it's in the most traditional of all the signs. It's in Taurus. Taurus always does things the way they've always done it. So of course they don't want to change their pronouns. Of course we can't see non-binary people, even though 500 years ago, it was no big deal, especially in indigenous cultures. There was plenty of non-binary people or queer people. We just didn't call them the same thing. The indigenous tribes have different names for their queer people. It's not a new concept, but it feels like a new concept because it has gone mainstream in our current culture. And it's being used currently as a power tool, as a power play. Okay. And so queerness is wrapped up in that. So let me say that if you're queer or you have queer loved ones, this using queers for a tool or whatever is going to come to an end in the next year or two. This is all going to stop. People are going to stop tolerating it and stop falling for it. And as Uranus moves into Gemini, people are just going to probably get over it. And they're going to be probably a little pissed off that they've been duped. Now, they may not say that, but I assure you, in their heart of hearts, they're going to be like, I can't believe that he used transgender people to control me and get me to vote for him. And all this time, it was no big deal that this transgender person existed, right? Okay. So that's probably what's going to happen, but it won't happen until Uranus is in Gemini. More people will awaken as Uranus goes forward. More people will awaken as it gets into Gemini. Okay. Especially as Saturn and Neptune separate and Saturn moves over Neptune, and we have whatever explosions we have to have, whatever things are going to happen. And, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Gemini represents two twins, and it is ruled by Mercury, which is gender neutrality. And so, of course, Gemini is a rather gender neutral sign anyway. It's one of the most gender neutral signs of them all. And with Uranus moving into it, I think it speaks to gender neutrality, where we stop all this focus on sex parts and we move away from that old way of thinking. And thank God, I think it's actually better. I think it's better for us all. It's better for men, it's better for women, and it's better for everyone else. So I just want to speak to that, because it's kind of my. That's why the universe wants me here, so that I talk about it. So Uranus is the ruler of progress, of going forward, and you guys can see here on Monday, it's at 27 degrees. It hasn't gone forward yet. It's still red. When it's red, it's retrograde. It is in a square to the moon on Monday, but the moon is going to go void. So it probably won't. There could be some drama in the afternoon, but it will all fizzle out by around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay. So it could feel like something's going to happen, but it probably won't, or it will happen really fast and then it will just sort of sizzle out right after that. Okay. And then as we get into the week, Tuesday, to be honest, most of the week is pretty chill. It's not an intense week. There's a lot of calm energy. And I think that's why I kind of presented Uranus the way I did in the meditation, is because I felt like it doesn't always have to be extreme, right? Okay. But it is overall going to put you on the right path. So things could shift. Maybe things you've been waiting for could come through. Things could work out. You could start finding your path and finding your way forward. And I think that that's really what I'm saying. And that's really the theme of this week, is that things are going to start moving forward. You're going to start seeing spring. You're going to start seeing where you're going and headed in that direction. And I think that that's really the important thing. Now, I do notice that there's a yod here pointing at the moon. And it looks like it's a waning moon, huh? Bright Hawk in Virgo. Waning. Can you talk a little bit about it being waning?
So, obviously, with the moon, every month we have a new moon, and every month we have a full moon. And we've just had a full moon on the February 1st. And now the moon is shedding, it's waning. And so, of course, that's the cycle we're in. We're in the cycle of shedding, of learning, of resolving, of integrating lessons, of putting things to completion, putting things to rest. That's the cycle of the waning moon. And this starts the inconjunctions I was mentioning, where the finger of God begins to emerge. And they often emerge with the moon at the point. The thing that makes a finger of God is two inconjuncts, 250 degrees, and the bottom to have a sextile. That's what makes it a complete inconjunct. So we have one that's pointing towards the sun, but it's not a complete one because the base is not a sextile. But we have one that is pointing to the moon that shows the sextile of Chiron and Venus and Mercury on the base, their sextile, pointing at the moon in Virgo at 21 degrees. So, what does that mean? Let's talk about that. So, when we think about the moon, we think about our emotional energy, we think about mother, relationship to the divine mother. And it's definitely, the ocean of emotion. That's Cancer, right? So, the moon rules Cancer. So the moon in Virgo is in a mutable earth sign. And so it tends to be more grounded because Virgo is definitely more grounded. And the inconjuncts are with Chiron, the wounded healer in Aries, which has been now direct for several weeks and in a powerful position because in the sextile with Venus and Mercury, all about communications and relationships. So, wow, I'd say huge potential for communication and relationships, having a healing experience that make you feel very differently about things. That's just what I see. If you want to go ahead and interpret it, go ahead.
So I think that the moon in Virgo, I think does speak to healing. I think you're right in that, especially like wellness. And I've seen like a lot of people are doing like healthier things for themselves. They're trying to change the way I mean, most people do that in January anyway, right? So, and it's pulling from Venus in Aquarius. So I think, and that's even like mentally thinking, right? And with the moon in Virgo, that's kind of like, oh, I think I might have actually done this. I think it might actually be working. Maybe you're eating healthier. Maybe you've changed some sort of habit, or you're doing something to better give love to yourself, whatever you're doing. Um, so I think that that's what that yod speaks to. And I think it's just meant to be. It could also be about communication, since Mercury rules Virgo. And it could be about a female, a woman in particular, stepping forward and speaking some sort of truth that helps lead us all into healing as a collective. That could absolutely happen, and that speaks to all of those planets and that aspect there. That yod is the green arrows pointing down at the moon at the bottom there. Okay, and there's like a blue line at the top of it there. Um,
I
So,
think the other thing that's intense about this chart, I'm just going to say, and I think it's the thing that honestly, I think it was Rick Levine who brought it to my attention, is that Uranus, that Mars and Venus square Uranus. We have a lot of revolutionary energy, and that square makes me nervous. I am praying, hoping it's the potential for healing that we talked about with the sextile to Chiron. But with that square, it just speaks to building tension, 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 and that's what a square does. That's kind of the good thing about a square is that it's an opportunity. It forces you got to go this way, you got to go that way. It's not a stay mushy forever. Although sometimes no decision is a decision in itself, isn't it? But um, that lasts for a while. That doesn't just, it's not just a few moments. It's a substantial square, the Uranus to Venus and Mercury. So lots of just prayers and hopes that, remember, Aquarius is about we the people. Aquarius is about what is for the highest good of all. Aquarius is about how can we do this better, because it's ruled by Uranus. So it's revolutionary with a reason and a purpose. And we're not going to take it, we're not going to, the, it's definitely a breakthrough energy of we're not going to stand for this anymore. And that could be a very good thing. And maybe it makes the changes happen that so desperately need to happen. But I'm glad Chiron is sextiling it. So I know we're all praying for nonviolent change, that people, that no one else needs to die, please. And that the people prevail, that people get heard. So a lot of faded energy. It's rare to see this many green lines on a chart.
Mm-hmm. Oops. So so I feel like that's Wednesday, so there's a lot of faded energy on one day. You could have some emotional healing about your own healing, or maybe some habits or something, especially anything to do with wellness. Virgo tends to rule that. And then into Thursday, we have a nice trine with the moon. We still have Jupiter in conjunct the sun perfectly, and Jupiter's retrograde. So I worry about this day actually being where something can kind of go wrong. And at this point, Uranus has gone direct. So if something does go wrong, I feel like it's still destined. And it's speaking. Why is it destined? What am I really saying? What I'm saying is that these things, we've had problems with our government for a long time. This is not just in the last year or whatever, or 2 years or 10 years. There's been some corruption and some really messed up stuff going on in our country for a very long time. Donald Trump is nothing more than a growth. He's like a cancerous growth on that problem that's been going on for a long time. And while part of us just wants to cut off the cancer, you have to also deal with the root problem. And I think that that's what the universe is trying to make sure we do. Because sure, you can just cut off the cancer, but if you don't stop introducing that chemical, or if you don't take care of what's causing the cancer, then it's just going to come back again in a different form with a different face and a new name. So this is why I'm just saying that it's not that Donald Trump is I definitely don't think Donald Trump is a good guy. I think that Donald Trump is a catalyst for change. And so everything that he's doing and his entire administration and all of the Republicans and the people that are making choices that are not in the people's best interest is meant to catalyst we the people to come together. And that's why we're seeing all this Aquarian energy. And this Aquarian energy is not done with us. Even when all those planets move out, we'll get a little breather. But then we're going to have an eclipse. And then we're going to have the North Node. And that won't get up. That won't let up for 2 years. So, we have energy that we have coming to us. We have to learn to unite. We have to learn to organize. Get on page now. Don't resist. Keep yourself safe, please, people out there that are protesting. Please take care of yourself. Please do all you can to keep it peaceful as possible. And, this is an important time. The world is watching the United States have a revolution. We are in a revolution, 100%. And I think it was in the 60s, there was a song uh, by someone, I'm having a hard time with his name. Maybe I'll come up with his name. But he said, the revolution will not be televised. I think this time it might be. And I feel like we're watching it on television, some of us. And I want to give that man credit for that. And so I just think that it's, it is true. Um, who wrote the song? The revolution will not. So I think that we have to understand that with his name is Gil Scott Heron. Um, and there's a song that he says, he was a lyricist, the revolution will not be televised. And that's exactly what it said. And he was talking about the Black Revolution, the civil rights movement in the 60s. That's what he was making reference to. And although that is also part of our story, just like the LGBTQ community is part of the story, I think this is about we the people, all of us. None of us want to be run by a bunch of freaking billionaires. No one wants that. I don't care what color your skin is. I don't care if you're queer or not. I don't care if you're Christian or a witch. The point of the fact is that no one wants to be controlled by a billionaire, and no one wants our country or our world run by those people. I think most of us can understand that it's bad news and it leads to bad things. And I think that that's what's being asked. It's interesting because my son used to always say to me, it's not just about race or queerness or whatever, mom. It's actually probably about classism. And I think he's right. It is about classism. And to a lot of degrees, he is correct. It is about classism because, middle class people, and nowadays, though, there are higher class people that are, that have plenty of money that are in support of LGBTQ people, right? But there are also some people that are clearly not. And we don't even know who's for real and who's not, and what's a lie and what's not. And those are the kinds of things that need to be figured out and we need to work on. Our government is incredibly corrupt and medicine is corrupt. And that's not good for the people either. And so all parts of it are kind of messed up. And I think that this opposition with the sun, sorry, not opposition, in conjunct between the sun and Jupiter is going to speak to the we the people versus the people that want to control, because Jupiter is still retrograde. And until it goes forward, the protests won't be as impactful. When every time I've been watching these protests and every time Jupiter goes direct, that's when the protests are really strong. So we're waiting for Jupiter to go direct. I don't remember, Bright Hawk, if you listed that.
No.
Okay. Yeah, because that's gonna, every time it goes direct, the protests get stronger. So I just feel like in this instance on Thursday, it could be a little uneasy. There could be some clash. There could be a clash of the sides because Jupiter retrograde tends to represent the people that call themselves patriots but aren't, like conservatives, people that are like Donald Trump and stuff like that. But once it goes direct, it then speaks to the current protests, real patriots.
March 11th. March
Okay,
11th. The Ides of March. Isn't that the Ides of March? I believe it is. 3/11 is when Jupiter will go direct. Yeah, this particular Thursday is pretty intense because you have the exact square 27 degrees Uranus to Mercury. You have an exact in conjunct 16 degrees to the sun, Jupiter and the sun. Yeah, so Hopefully.
But that's probably going to be something. That's probably going to be something that has to do with the protest and with our government.
Hmm.
It could just mean that leaders come forth and say things, and somebody comes forth and says things that need to be said, and maybe the opposite side says something that doesn't need to be said. Who knows? But it could be like an exchange
Well,
of
there's
different.
definitely an answering. We have Saturn and Neptune on the world point. The whole world is watching. You know, the the illusion of the Neptune shattering illusions. Let's just put it that way. And Saturn in its very last. The tide has changed and the sandcastle's getting washed away. Right. This is that last bit of last 2 weeks essentially of Saturn in Pisces at the world point. So the bottom line there is that you have fire and water. What do you get? A lot of steam, a lot of hot steam. So, yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. The whole world is keeping an eye on it. Everybody's in this together. There's just a destiny to this that we're all kind of like, whoa, oh my God, can't make this up. So,
Yeah,
Friday.
and yeah, sorry. Yeah, so and I think as we move through the weekend, even though um Jupiter continues to be in conjunct the sun, I think it's going to start moving it away. We do have Venus square Uranus, so there could be some female leaders stepping forward, which I think is good. I think this is the time for female leaders. This is the time. And it makes me think about, I wonder where Pallas Athena is, just out of curiosity. Pallas Athena is an asteroid in astrology, but it's also a Greek goddess that is now honored as a goddess, but she was actually a political leader, and she was the only female political leader that ever led a war and won. And she won because she was so strategic. And so it's an interesting
Also
fact.
in a wait, Pallas Athena. Juno, Pallas Athena. There it is. It just entered Pisces. It's 2 degrees Pisces.
Well, nice. I'll be interested to see how Pallas Athena, if Pallas Athena plays its part in this story as we go forward, as new spiritual warriors step forward, and if Pallas Athena has any part in that, because I just feel like there's a lot more female leaders. We're seeing them step up every day, and that feels really good to equality and a step in the right direction. We're also seeing more people of color, which I appreciate too, and I appreciate that, and of course queer people. So that's great. And with this yod pointing at the moon again on Saturday, this time is more spiritual warrior energy, and with Saturn at the anaretic degree, in a sextile with Uranus, which is now direct. I'm really sure we're going to start seeing our way. By the time we get to the end of this week, we're really going to feel like we know where we're going. We know what's happening. We know what direction we're going in. And we can really feel the path sort of unrolling in front of us, like in the meditation. We'll start seeing forward in a further way. I feel like we'll start having a better idea of where we're headed. And I think that in some ways, for some of us, is more reassuring. I think for some people, they get scared of what they see. But I think for a lot of us, we get excited to at least have some sort of path laid out. That at least helps me feel more comfortable. So there's some faded energy this week. I don't think it will be terribly intense for anyone unless you happen to have something at 27 degrees Taurus. If you have a lot of energy in Aquarius, you will probably feel this, as well as Leo in the 20 degrees or over there in Libra. Okay. So you might feel those yads, but only if you have something where they're at.
Yeah, I just want to say Saturday is definitely easier energy. We have a void moon most of the days, so it should be much more chill, where the moon goes from earthy Libra. Wait, is Libra an earth sign? Air sign. And it moves into Scorpio, which always surprises me. I had to really work on this one. Scorpio's a water sign. So so that could be one of those times where, because it's going into water, it might feel like a wet blanket. I don't know. You tell us. Join us on Tuesday night to have a conversation about that, and bring your chart, and we'll have a conversation about what does the void of course moon feel like for you based on your sign. So Saturday should be pretty chill energy, and Sunday is not bad either. It should be fairly quiet, so to speak. Reflective. Take good care of yourself. Well, that's the week, and hopefully that helps you understand the week. And what helps all of us is Hollis always does a 3-card pull of the tarot, which is using the Love is Love deck. That is, each card is a different LGBTQIA artist, which they're wonderful cards. And it just blows my mind how consistently the tarot reflects the astrology of the week and helps add another little piece of insight, especially since we look at the past, the present, and the future. All right. So, are you ready? I'll put my.
Interesting, we keep getting this card. I'll get into it in just a minute. So the first card that I have here is this is a 7 of Cups. And this card is really significant because it leads to choices. It speaks to a lot about choices. It speaks a lot about like being able to have a lot of choices and being able to make those choices, and even having the clarity to make those choices. And you might actually feel, I know I feel actually a little bit more clear with Neptune and Aries. It might just sometimes all the water from Pisces can sometimes feel like a wet blanket. So sometimes some clarity, and since Neptune is a visionary planet, it can really help you see forward. It can help you see your way through, and so that's really what's important about this card. And this speaks to our path and about your vision and the choices that you've made and what those choices, what the sort of um, repercussions of those choices are, including this here. This is about showing your hard work. This is about reflecting your hard work and putting your hard work out there in the world. This is meant to show, this is meant to sort of put your hard work on display. And this is also about doing the work. So, so while we're speaking to our choices that we've made and the hard work that we do day to day, this is the Hermit card, which very much speaks to being alone. This card came up last week, and it very much speaks to self reflection and taking time to be alone and think things through. So I think this is a really good card. And this is saying that there might be some time that you need to spend thinking and doing some self reflection and having some time to think about things. This is a really powerful card. So, like I said, remember that this speaks to the choices you've made in the past, and following those choices through and understanding the clarity of those choices, and as you go forward recognizing the hard work that you've put out there, and look at that hard work and how that hard work is on display, and hopefully that people are seeing it and recognizing you. This is about being recognized, and this is also about like making money from those or resources that are coming your way in regards to the hard work that you've done. And then also, this is about being alone. This is about taking time to think things through and to really reflect on your choices, both in the past and in the now. And the Hermit card is very much about using your wisdom. So, I hope that that is helpful for this week. I hope this helps you. And I hope that you can find some wisdom in that.
And that's exactly what I mean. You've just perfectly demonstrated how the tarot reflects the astrology. Because when you pulled the Hermit card, all I could think of was the void of course moon on Saturday. Like there's the perfect opportunity to sit and reflect and be quiet and give yourself some time. Isn't that amazing? You're amazing. I think you do incredible readings. Well, I hope all of this helps you. I hope you join us on Tuesday evening for the live Q&A. And thanks for your likes and shares and subscribes. And we really enjoy doing this broadcast. And we love that you're listening to Rainbow Soulstrology, where we try to be a bridge between you and the stars. Have a great week, everybody. Thanks so much for spending time with us this week. We hope you're feeling more connected to the cosmic energies and ready to work with them in your daily life. If you enjoyed today's show, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps us reach more people who could use some cosmic guidance. And don't forget to share this episode with anyone who might need to hear it. We love hearing from you, so drop a comment, let us know what resonated most or what you would like covered next week. Your questions and feedback make our show better. Want to join us live? Subscribe! And catch us on Facebook and YouTube, where you can ask questions in real time and be part of our cosmic community as it happens. Until next week, trust your intuition, follow your inner wisdom, and remember, the stars are always supporting your journey. Thanks for listening to Rainbow Soulstrology, where we try to be a bridge between you and the stars.